My name is Osei-Frimpong, and you are watching The Black Athenians. I'm coming to you Friday at 4 p.m.-ish at Broderick Flanagan's studio in Triangle Plaza in Athens, Georgia. Now, we call it Black Athenians because I try to do politics that's tailored to Athens, Georgia, but Athens, Georgia is a place with a lot of old white money and a lot of generational black poverty. So if your town also has a lot of old white money and black generational poverty, it'll work for you too. I'm looking at you, Columbus. I'm looking at you, St. Louis. I'm looking at you, Charlottesville. So this is local black politics that's supposed to be able to work for all localities where there are black communities adjacent to white money. Because honestly, a lot of my commentary is how black people could take what's ours. There was this great study that just came out about Chicago that says because of contract housing in the 50s and 60s, black communities in Chicago, black people in Chicago lost anywhere from $3.2 to $4 billion. That's $3.2 to $4 billion because of real estate schemes that were part of both national policy, state policy, and local policy. At the time, the FHA wouldn't allow black people to move in all neighborhoods. So like national policy also was parasitic upon state policy, which was parasitic upon local policy, which ended up with black people being shorted anywhere from $3.2 to $4 billion. And make no mistake, black people, that money wasn't lost, that was expropriated, and that was our inheritance. So every time you go to Chicago and you see like a poor black rundown neighborhood, just think how much better it would be if that whole neighborhood had a $3.2 to $4 billion injection. Because that's what happened. And the study just came out. I don't have a picture on it, but I'm sure if you just Google Chicago, $4 billion, contract housing, you'll find it. And that's our inheritance. That was just during the 50s and 60s in one city. Just imagine how much it was appropriated like all across the United States.
We're not even talking about a whole generation. We're talking about 20 years.
20 years?
In 20 years, in the 50s and 60s. So we're not even talking about a whole generation.
In 20 years, they just yoinked $3.2 to $4 billion of your inheritance. So I do this show to make black communities whole because, and this is a nice segue into, first, we're going to hit the opening. I'll tell you after the opening.
To the beat, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front.
To the beat, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government.
All right, we're back. So, our inheritance, right? And the reason I run this show is to give you the quality of political education so we can get that inheritance back. Danielle Allen wrote a fantastic book called, it's either Education and Equality or Equality and Education. Pretty much, he said that the parasitic inequalities that run rampant through the United States. Make no mistake, the worry about inequality and wealth inequality isn't so much that some people have it and some people are poor. No, you have to worry about a few things. Some people have it because other people are poor. And that's the problem. Because what that wealth inequality does is set up parasitic relationships and predatory relationships so that big money eats little money. And black people, little money is us. I gave a little talk in Chicago today. In Chicago last week, that's why I wasn't here. I gave a little talk in Chicago where I said that, let's be honest, we're standard deduction people. We don't itemize because we don't have to itemize because we're standard deduction people because most of us are broke. Some people aren't broke, and even the people who aren't broke probably aren't so wealthy that they have to itemize. So for the most part, I do standard deduction philosophy for standard deduction people because that's us. We are standard deduction people. I'm middle class, and I still take the standard deduction. So that's where we are. And the goal of this show is to give you the quality of political education so that we can make our communities whole, because we have never been made whole in these United States ever since we were left out of chains. We were just terrorized, and then they got the Great Migration. My mom was from South Carolina, and she moved to California. They call it the Great Migration, but that wasn't migration. She was a refugee. Because if you stayed...
Migrations are by choice.
Migration was a choice. Like, no, you wasn't an immigrant, you wasn't a migration. She was a refugee, because if you stayed here, you were terrorized. And her and her brother didn't want to be terrorized, so they got into their Dodge Dot or Volvo, whatever, and drove across the United States and made their way in Northern California. And there are people in Chicago with the same story, people in Jersey with the same story, people in D.C. with the same story. Although I don't think, if you ask me, I don't think they migrated far enough.
Yeah, but
that's still the South.
Yeah, I was about to say, we
You've
thought
just moved.
We thought D.C. was safe, and as we've learned very recently, we are now the minority there, and yeah.
Yeah, no, you're still in the South in D.C. That's why they moved D.C. from New York to D.C. So what I want to talk to you about is Danielle Allen's book. Either it's Equality in Education, Education and Equality. It's a series. It's 2 essays. It's really nice because she says, look, we make enough in the United States. The problem isn't productivity necessarily. There's enough wealth in the United States. There's something like $96 trillion in private wealth that's just sitting in accounts in the United States. The problem isn't the wealth, it's the distribution. And so if black people need to be made whole, don't listen to those people that like, you just need these 7 million different types of skills. No, you just need to be able to fight for your cut of that $96 trillion. You need to be able to fight for your cut of the $96 trillion. So any education that's teaching you how to do anything except fight, that doesn't also include fighting for that cut of $96 trillion in private wealth, isn't an education for your justice. It's an education for white comfort. Because make no mistake, black people, your justice is going to come at quite a bit of white discomfort. And you're just going to have to roll right through that white discomfort.
Just think about all the trillions.
Yeah, just think about the trillions. It's okay. You'll see some white tears and like, aren't we supposed to be united? Not, you're being divisive. Yeah, I'm going to divide you from that $96 trillion. So
yeah.
that's...
that's...
You write out a check, we can...
We'd be a lot less divisive with that 97 trillion.
Our access to spread around my community. And we could start with that $4 billion in Chicago. Just dump it in Inglewood.
Yeah.
Parachute it. We'll sort it out ourselves. So she's like, look, you need an education to get people to be comfortable with the levers of political power and the levers of power. That's the quality of education you need in order to make black communities whole. So you can teach black people soft skills and programming and all of that stuff. And what will end up happening is it's not going to work because you got white engineers out of their jobs right now. You can teach black people financial literacy, which is fine, but financial literacy doesn't mean much when you only make $7 an hour.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not financial literacy. That's not if you're making $8 an hour, financial literacy isn't your problem. You need power. Like that's your problem. You're living in public housing. Your problem isn't financial literacy. It's you don't have access to real money.
What I really want is a financial literacy class that's literally, here's how you survive off $7 an hour, and I want to watch and see what they got to say.
Yeah, I don't need a financial literacy. I can talk to.
I call that a comedy.
Yeah, no, I know 500 Negroes from here to my house who could teach that class. And do it better than any white person from any suburb.
That's true. I may have a new stand-up career.
No, you want that class? How to live off $7 an hour and still be fine. I know people who can teach that class. No, so financial literacy built that's taught by some suburban white kid isn't really for me because we don't have money. So what I'm trying to teach you here is actually how to get your half, to get your cut of the $96 trillion. And that's a quality of political education that I try to give every week, right? But that's a quality of education that I shouldn't just be giving at the Funky Academic. You should get in your K through 12 schools. That means your teachers need to know how to wield and consolidate political power, and so they can teach students how to wield and consolidate political power so the students and students' family could be made whole. That's the quality of teachers that we need, but teachers can't teach what teachers don't know. And the problem is teacher training doesn't teach this kind of power. So your teachers don't know how to wield power in a way, especially if you're in your non-unionized state. Your teachers don't know. your teachers don't know how to wield enough power to get themselves in a union, so they're definitely not going to be able to wield enough power, teach you how to wield power to like extract your fair share of America's wealth from your white neighbors. And if your white neighbors are also your white teachers, they may have a conflict of interest.
I was just thinking, I was just thinking, I was like, and even once they get the education, they need to get the willingness to share power.
To share power. Because, there's a great, I read a great little line about all these people who talk about, I fight for the unborn and the rights of fetuses. Yeah, it's easy to fight for the unborn because you don't have to share power for them. I need you to fight those Negroes. Why more black billionaires give? And someone asked me to clarify why more black billionaires giving won't just solve our problem. We just that's part of the con, man. First of all, there are like 6 black billionaires.
Yeah.
And something like 42 million black people.
Let me once again just go with my favorite line. Find the richest black billionaire in this country and have Jeff Bezos wake up with that guy's money tomorrow. No. He'll kill himself.
Right. Jeff Bezos does not want Oprah money.
Yeah. No.
Like, Jeff Bezos wakes up with Robert Smith money. He'll be like, that's it. Like, he'll end it now. Why do I even bother? So there simply are not enough black billionaires to do this. And you're like, well, what about Pan-Africans, the African billionaires? The African billionaires have Africans they're not giving money to. By the time they're not giving money to you, they've already not given money to all those Africans. So don't talk to me about the African billionaires, and don't talk to me about the six black billionaires. And Byron Allen just bought. I think he just made some moves. He just bought another kind of media. Byron Allen is one of the black billionaires. He's like 800 million or close to $1 billion, depending on who you talk to. But even he, in order to make his latest acquisition, had to be part of a group, the Sinclair group. So, and I don't think he's a board member. I just think he was like, hey, Sinclair, can we together do this deal so that I can acquire this other station? That means one of our 7 black billionaires can't even make moves on his own. He needs Sinclair. Like, he needs white money.
And speaking of Oprah,
Channel money.
And speaking of Oprah, yeah. I mean, if Oprah had built her school in Chicago, there would have been outrage. So she knew when she built the school in Africa and made the comment, they want to learn.
No, Oprah didn't want to talk. Even Obama. I gave a talk last week at the ADOS group in Chicago. By the way, Chicago ADOS, you're doing well. And all ADOS groups, local chapters, nice work. Keep listening to Yvette. I think she's fantastic. So, good on you. Also, think about becoming dues-paying organizations because you're going to need your own independent money and you don't want to have to worry about, some donors. So think about being a dues-paying organization. In order to become a dues-paying organization, all you need is a WordPress site and a PayPal account. And you put that PayPal account, there's a widget on your WordPress site. I know this because I have one on my WordPress site. And you can go to it, and if you like what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com, and you'll see me. And on the left-hand side of it, on the left-hand side, there's going to be a place for you to sign up for a reoccurring membership. $5, $15, $50 a month, or you can do a one-time only donation. That'd be great, because the quality of political education I give costs. I got to pay rent here. I want to pay my people a little bit more money. So please go ahead and do that. And also, if you're in an ADOS group, you can just get the same setup in your own little site. And it doesn't have to be a fancy site, but you just need a place for people to sign up for a monthly donation. And it says PayPal, but you can just use credit cards. So, and I think that's how you get your dues for your ADOS group. An American Descendants of Slaves. Nice work. I support you guys. Thanks for bringing me out to Chicago and taking care of me there in Chicago. And I think it's just great what you're doing. But Obama, even in his he's building the Obama Library on the south side of Chicago, and it might displace some things that don't displace. And it's definitely going to jack up some rents for people who don't need their rents jacked up. They want a community benefits agreement. And this community benefits agreement will say, like, look, we'll let you build your presidential library here. You've used Chicago very well. Chicago's been very good to you. So now we'll let you use your we'll let you build your presidential library here. But let's make sure we have some black contractors. Let's make sure that we create jobs for black people. Let's make sure that this is good for the community that the library is going up in. Obama's like, no, I don't want to. Because if I do one community benefits agreement with one neighborhood association, then like everyone else is going to come out with their hat in their hand trying to get a cut. And to which I say, you're damn right.
You mean they're going to be community organizers?
They're going to be, the communities around your library should get a piece of the money that the library generates and get a piece. And it shouldn't just be like people flying in, going to the library and then going back out, flying out. No, they like that. The library should be good for the community because you're going to use that. You use Chicago. You used Chicago because I don't know if you would have gotten elected as a Hawaiian president.
or without using the term
Southside,
community organizer.
Community organizer was a term that he used quite a bit. So Obama, you're welcome for allowing us to give you the presidency. Now, when you build your library on our lawn, you're going to have to do good things for the community. But Obama didn't want to do it because he didn't want to also have to deal with other, Negroes who want jobs, like laying concrete for his library. So
See, he could have just made those checks out to cash and moved past this problem. But
he doesn't want to make that check out to cash. I'll take, you know what? You don't have to do a community benefits agreement. Let's just get a cut of all those speaking fees you're going to get for the next 20 years. I'll take a cut of those.
I would absolutely take that
Just-
over the
just- we'll
community.
just take 10% off. Take 15% off the top. 15% of all your speaking fees for the next. How long? You got about 40 more years of life. He's only 50.
Yeah.
So we'll just take 15% of that and go make that money right to Woodlawn.
I'd like to point out
Inglewood. Yes.
Irony is being very generous with
Yeah.
15% because I'm sitting here thinking
Obama's not
25. He could give up 25%.
Well, what I'm thinking is Obama's not president without Southside Chicago, and Southside Chicago needs some of that Obama money. So, yes.
Okay.
I want a chunk. I
I'm
want a
thinking
chunk.
25.
And then also book deals. I want 15.
Oh, book deal.
I want 15% of that. There is no, Barack, you write a book without being president. That book's not going to sell the hundreds of millions. Michelle, you write a book without being married to Barack. That book isn't going to sell what you want it to sell. So we allowed you to be a black president. So from Chicago. So we should get a cut of subsequent endeavors. Not all of it, but enough. So what I want to do is talk about how teachers are not taught to make the kind of demands I'm asking and why they're not taught. But first, I'll get to the video later. So you can't teach what you don't know, and what you don't know is political power and how to wield it, consolidate it, and especially if you're not in a union, you probably just don't know. You don't know. That's not something they teach you in teacher training. That's not something they taught you at your teacher's education program. They taught you other standards of professional conduct, how to dress, how to manage your classroom in a certain way. But this is also a professional standard because the saying is true that teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions. I'll say it again. Teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions. So we need to advocate for teachers to have good working conditions so that our students have good learning conditions. But if our teachers don't know how to advocate for good working conditions, then our students will not actually have good learning conditions, right? So we need teachers, as a matter of their jobs, to learn how to advocate for good working conditions. And this is where, give me my friend Maggie wrote a nice post on Facebook. Make it big. Yeah, that one. I'm going to read it out, make it big. Send it over? Yeah. All right, so, and reading those books doesn't mean, this is, Maggie was talking about all of the woke education books that she was reading in her teacher training class, a teacher training program. And reading those books doesn't mean you're ready or trained to organize for desegregation, dramatic lowering of class sizes, demanding an end of emergency credential teachers in hardest to staff subjects in schools, demanding an end to high stakes standardized testing, demanding universal high quality ECE starting at age 3, not 4, 4.5, and training that does not occur for educators interested in this kind of thing. But training that does occur for the educators interested in this kind of thing happens on campuses through teacher-led organizations like CORE in NYC and CORE in Chicago and TFSJ in the Bay Area, and there are a few LA ones too. And I don't know them well. They played a large role in organizing the LA strike. That means teachers organizing for better working conditions for themselves and better learning conditions for their students is taught through these other teacher-led organizing groups. But it should be instituted as a matter of what it is to be a professional teacher. If you don't know anything about organizing, political organizing and social organizing, and I'm not just talking about bake sales, you could start there, but that should be your gateway to like movements. Then you shouldn't be teaching kids who need to learn how to organize for justice. And you shouldn't be teaching in distressed neighborhoods. So I'm going to need you, if you don't have the stomach for political organizing, then you don't have the stomach to be teaching black kids. And this is a good place to segue into the video. Can you make it a little bit bigger? So this is a video, a little clip from a show that you might have watched as a youngin'. If you were like me and you watched this as a youngin', it's Little House on the Prairie. And what's important about this clip is that's Little Willis from Different Strokes. Go ahead and give him the clip.
We're also using this for purely educational purposes.
Yeah, this is purely educational purposes. Go.
Now, last week I had you write an essay about the things that you liked the most. This week I thought it might be fun if we wrote an essay about the things that we disliked the most. Solomon?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you think of something that you dislike?
Being a nigga. I didn't mean nothing bad. The teacher asked a question and I just answered it.
Why'd you say it?
'Cause it's the truth. If and I was white, my pa'd still be alive. Being a nigga killed my pa. You answer me something, sir.
If I can.
Would you like to live to be 100?
I'm sure I would. It's not very likely, but I guess all of us like to live to a ripe old age.
Would you rather be black and live to be 100, or white and live to be 50?
Now, last week I had you...
There you go. That was Little Willis. Willis, Todd Bridges. Life did not... It didn't work out for Todd Bridges, if I remember correctly. He had a bad patch.
Yep. Yeah.
Is he alive still? I don't know.
I do not recall. I want to actually say that the only survivor
Gary Coleman
of those kids is Gary Coleman.
Gary Coleman. Yeah. All right. So life was not kind to Todd Bridges, and he just had a lot. I think he had a lot of black problems. I think it was just a lot of. I think he had a lot of black people problems, like as in like family. Yeah. Like you might have been on TV, but we don't know about Todd Bridges' uncles and cousins, and I think he was just from the hood, regular guy. So Todd Bridges had regular Todd Bridges problem, but that was Little Willis. That was Willis, except when he was little. I knew him as Willis from Different Strokes. But that was Willis on Todd Bridges on Little House on the Prairie. And he said, look, I don't want to be black. It seems like life is easier when you're white. Because he's right. A lot of things in life are easier. A lot of very superficial things in life are easier. Getting meaning in your life isn't particularly easier, and then thinking about your role as a terrorist isn't particularly easier. But a lot of other things, like buying a house, buying a car, doing well in school, those things are easier.
Walking down the street.
Getting into heaven, I'm not sure. Walking down the street, like getting into heaven, being responsible, I'm not convinced is easier if you're white. I think if you're white, you deserve all of the mental health problems that you find yourself in your meaningless life. Because if you're white and you're not working on, so if you're white in America and you're not working on racial justice, especially in the South, but pretty much where there are poor black people around, like you're just not doing your duty as an American, and that's going to eat at you. Not only that.
And it should eat at you.
And it should eat at you. And not only that, you're probably participating in the oppression of black communities. Like you are doing that and telling yourself some sort of story about why you're not. And that's like not a good way to live, I don't think. So yeah, Willis, first of all, think about a few things. They say that the real gap, the real substantive gap comes in about 4th grade, 5th grade, when black kids start realizing that like it's not the greatest thing in the world to be black relative to what America is supposed to promise you. And so there starts to be a gap in, that's the extra tax, that's the extra intellectual tax you face while you're being black. So if you're in a black school and you're not willing to, if you can't handle Willis's question about what it means to be black and what it means to be white, because if you're not willing to say to a room full of white students and one black student that what it means to be white is to profit off of a standing order of terrorism, then you shouldn't be teaching black students. And you probably shouldn't be teaching white students because you're just making self-satisfied white supremacists. So you need teachers who actually know how to answer that question better than the teacher did, because these teachers who they mean well and they just love their students. Like, I don't care. If you're not willing to tick off all of the other white students and their parents by just admitting that we live in an era of terrorism and that the fruits of that terrorism are spread around white communities to the degradation of black communities, and that black rights don't really matter, then you shouldn't be teaching anybody, because you're actually distorting their notion of reality. Yeah.
No, I was going to say that, it's not even just having the knowledge, but the willingness
to actually
teach
tick off and make some white students very uncomfortable and make their parents very uncomfortable, which is why it's a great segue into why, another reason why teachers need job protection in unions. If you don't know, would you believe I'm actually very good at teaching at the University of Chicago when they let me teach classes. I think my fall 2018 class was probably one of the best intro to philosophy classes taught in the world. And I stand by that statement. We did all the regular canon plus some other stuff, and you had me just working through the argument. And I think it was one of the, I've taught a lot. I've been in a lot of classes. I think this was one of the best intro to philosophy classes taught in the world. And I taught it, and those kids there are different for having taken that class. And it'll just get better as they talk to their parents for it. But I also was like this de facto white supremacist, but self-described conservative guy wanted to get me fired from teaching. But I knew how to organize, and I organized for my conditions, and I ended up winning my case. And the university made horrible, unfortunate decisions that they did to themselves, because there's a certain kind of harm you can only do to yourself, and the University of Georgia ended up doing it to itself in trying to prosecute me. But I knew how to organize, and I won my case, and I am an emancipated Negro, and I'm teaching again in the fall, and it will be a fantastic class. I'm teaching logic and critical thinking. So I knew how to organize, and so I could teach my class the way I ought to teach it and the way I should teach it. And that's only because I had a union, and it's only because I knew how to organize, and it's only because I knew how to consolidate power. So if you have teachers who don't know how to do that, then they will have to fold under the pressure and end up tailoring their curriculum to the comfort of whatever ticked off alumni, whatever ticked off parent that's dealing with them. And there are two very important intellectuals that you should know that had to actually deal with just this thing. And if you're talking about race in real life, if you're talking about race well, you will deal with upset parents and upset alumni. Give me Howard Zinn or W.B. Du Bois. One of them. Who are you doing right now? Zinn? All right, so Zinn, a lot of people don't know. I didn't even know this. He taught at Spelman. That's where he met, who wrote Alice Walker. That's where he met Alice Walker. Howard Zinn, author of The People's History of the United States, one of the probably most influential historians of the 20th century, especially about like kind of going back and looking back into the archives and finding out the truth about the United States. He taught at Spelman University until he radicalized too many students and they got rid of him. This is in the 60s. He was at Spelman University until they bounced him. Yeah, and then he finished the rest of his career up in New York. But Howard Zinn got kicked out of an HBCU for creating, because like he wasn't teaching respectability history. He was teaching, all right, so this is how they're taking your money and this is how they're taking your land, and I don't know what you want to do with it, but like this is just the archive about what they've done to you. So that was, and then the donors at Spelman thought that wasn't fine for the young women of Spelman. So Alice Walker ended up leaving, but Howard Zinn got drummed out of Spelman University. So you got to wonder about what they're teaching at the HBCUs. And this is also another one, W.B. Du Bois. Now, W.B. Du Bois was like not even a historian. He was one of the best academics America has ever produced. I think he founded sociology. America, like definitely sociology in America. Like his book, The Philadelphia Negro, is, yeah. So W.B. Du Bois, master of like 7 disciplines, founder of American sociology, I think. And he was bounced out of Atlanta University. Before it was Clark Atlanta, it was just Atlanta University, for making a white donor nervous by suggesting that the white donor didn't really have the best interests of the students in mind.
And I think that's actually the answer to the question someone
black.
asked earlier.
Yeah.
Someone asked, why aren't more black billionaires? Well, here's another reason why they aren't doing it.
No, because look, there would be enough black billionaires if we had more black millionaires, and reason we don't have black millionaires is because we're not taught how to get our cut of America's wealth, right? So, like, you need a broad-based and diffused class of people who have capital, but you're only going to get that broad-based and diffused class of people who have capital if we're taught how to organize and wield capital, and we're only going to be taught how to organize and wield power to get our cut if we take the money that was expropriated for us and stolen from us, and organize to get that money that was stolen from us. And you can only legitimately do that if you have the arguments and you know the history and you get the education of why we're not made whole. Now give me the Oregon. Oregon just passed a law that Oregon schools will be required to teach about the Holocaust. Got that? Oregon schools will be required to teach about the Holocaust. So that means teachers are going to be trained in the Holocaust.
How long ago was it we were allowed to buy property?
Less than 100 years. So if you know anyone who's black who's 100 years old, and there are a lot of black people who make it to 100 years old, if you know it, they are not from Oregon. they are not from Oregon. Because up until 1926, we weren't even allowed to buy property. Now, if you know money that's over 100 years old, or institutions that are over 100 years old, they're not black and in Oregon because we weren't allowed to have property. So all of that lumber money in Oregon, all of that mining money in Oregon, all of that, just coastal property in Oregon's nice, all of that Astoria money, all of that Hewlett Packard money that's in Oregon. Honestly, all of that Nike money that's in Oregon.
Or that future money they're about to get from the criminalization of...
Man, all the future money they're about to get from the criminalization of marijuana, which is going to drive housing prices up, from all of those, all of the money that's going to be garnered from progressive legislation. It's not going to be all of the old money that's going to grow exponentially from the progressive legislation. It's not going to be black money because there is no black old money in there, because we weren't allowed to buy property in Oregon until 1926 because it was founded as an anti-black state. It was founded in 1868, and in the Constitution, they wrote no black people. We don't want to be a slave state, but we also don't want to have to share power with black people, so we just are going to solve that problem by not allowing black people to buy property here. And that didn't get kicked out of the Constitution until 1926. And can you believe, if it didn't get kicked out of the Constitution in 1926, it's not like immediately Negroes were welcome. No, they had anti-miscegenation laws until like the early 60s. And if you had anti-miscegenation laws until the early 60s, that means like you didn't have real black communities there until like 2 weeks ago.
And what property was available
by the 60s? Yeah. So if you're in 1926, by 1926, all the good property's gone, right? And nobody wants to sell to you. So you need to be a black person with money laying around who's gonna like go to Oregon and buy property and deal with a bunch of racists who don't want you there because you lower their property value. because every time there's a situation like that, where you move, it's going to get a dip because all of the white money is going to move elsewhere and create an artificial white flight bubble of wealth. So the white adjacent neighborhoods are always going to be worth more than the places where black people eventually settle.
On a local level, that would be Oconee County.
Oconee County, they have, I think I've read it's as much of a third of it's just white supremacist money. That means if black people move there, the property values, if over 13% of black people would move to Oconee County, the property values would go down by a third because it would just be market rate as opposed to like white market rate. So you're paying a third of your property to be around white people.
If 13% of black people move to Oconee County,
if Oconee County between 30%,
there would be a peak in lynchings.
Yeah, the KKK would be a resurgence.
My very first field trip as a middle schooler in Oconee County was to see the history of lynching at the public library.
Yes, and they don't. Yeah, they don't talk. See,
and it didn't sound like bad,
right? Like, so when I study lynching, I don't study the people who were lynched. I study the white people who lynched them. I studied where they. I want to know about their money. I want to know about how much they were paid to lynch people. I want to know what that did to property values. I want to know how much money that money was recycled through generation. I want to know about the lynchers, because that's who I want my cut back. If you're serious about ending oppression, you need to study the oppressors, not so much the oppressed. But they'll flatter you into studying the oppressed. I want to study the oppressors. I want to head up a white studies department because I think I could do it very well. So, Oregon, a state that not only just genocide Native Americans, just denied, locked out black people, decided that they're going to teach, then mandated to teach the Holocaust. By the way, that's how you win the game. That's how, people who needed debt repaid in the Holocaust, that's how they win the game. They've taken over schools. So if you're the, Anti-Defamation League or AIPAC, this is how you win the game. Black people, we're not going to win statewide in the South. And if we do, it's going to be with some black or person like Tim Scott over in South Carolina, or some even Democrat like the Georgia, like the Louisiana governor. It's not going to be by fighting for us. So, but we can win our local school board elections. So we need to win local school board elections, start getting at the discretionary power that those boards have to hire and fire the quality of school executives and administrators that will then promote the quality of teachers who will teach the truth about white terrorism and black expropriation and what we need. So that's I think we need to start locally and start winning offices there and start winning and start getting our teachers in. And start teaching our teachers to organize for their own power and start teaching our teachers. We need to take over the classrooms. And this is what the right takes very seriously. They take over the classrooms, and then from that, they form the electorate they need, and then they just grow from there. So we need to teach the quality of teachers who are going to who know how to organize for themselves so that they can teach students without being harassed by parents or administrators. They can teach students the quality of education the students need so that they will eventually be able to take power and get their cut of the $96 trillion. I mean, you could teach Common Core, you could teach all of that stuff, but that's not going to, you could teach soft skills, but that's not going to do what black people need it to do. What's going to do what black people need to do is teaching them how to organize for power and get their cut. And with that, I am going to let you be. How long has it gone? 38 minutes. Good. So if you care about what I'm doing, send this video to all of your friends. Not just your friends, but your coworkers, your teacher trainers, your people. And if you want me to keep doing videos like this, and you should, because I provide a service, I'm going to need you to go to www.thefunkyacademic.com and sign up for a $5, $15, or $50 a month membership, because what I'm doing right now, depending on who you talk to, might make me unemployable into the future. So, and I might need a legal defense fund myself. So go ahead and tell your friends, send this all to your listservs, and go to thefunkyacademic.com. And if you take anything from this, remember, we need to teach teachers how to be organizers, because they need to organize for the protections they need to teach students the quality of education that will eventually draw the ire of de facto white supremacists. So we need teachers to be organizers so that they can secure themselves in their jobs, and to teach.
They can be honest.
So they can be honest with the students, and so that we don't just recruit and get students and teachers who look dumbfounded when little Willis says, "Yeah, but isn't it better to be? I don't want to be black because being black is dangerous." You can say, "Yeah." We need teachers who will say, "Yes, being black is dangerous."
I don't know if you remember what show this happened on. There was a show, similar setting, where the black kid said, "I wanted to be president."
Yes.
And the teacher keeps him afterwards and well, let's talk about realistic goals.
Right.
And
I think pretty much that's Malcolm X's story.
That's right. That's
might be Malcolm.
That's
X.
Malcolm X as a kid.
That's just
right.
Malcolm. Yeah, that's Malcolm X's. That just happened to Malcolm X.
Yeah.
So
that wasn't even for television.
Yes. All right. That's it. Get me out of here. Peace.